You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. By going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com, you can make this possible. All right, folks, there's a battle between public and, first of all, traditional public schools and charter schools in California. But it's not really between the schools. It's really the forces who do not want more charter schools in the state of California. There was a state representative who introduced a bill that would cap charter schools because he says that they're taking money from various local districts, making it harder for them to balance their books. A couple of weeks ago, remember, I went to Sacramento and hosted a town hall there for Margaret Fortune of the Fortune School because she has been fighting these particular bills. I'm talking about fighting them hard. Well, guess what? Last week, the California Assembly narrowly passed legislation that would give local school districts sole authority to approve new charter schools based upon how they impact their budgets, but also they defeated the bill when it came to capping those charter schools as well. Here to talk about this is Margaret Fortune. She's the president and CEO of the Fortune Schools. Margaret, how you doing?
I'm fabulous. It's good to be on the air with you, Roland.
All right, then. Glad to have Margaret here. So, folks, is Margaret by phone or Skype? So
by phone.
Okay, all right, then. So let's talk about what actually took place here. First and foremost, these bills that were introduced, the state rep who represents the area where you're from there in Sacramento put these forward, even though, one, his wife sits on the Sacramento school board, and two, of the schools in the whole state with the highest performing places where black students go, 3 of those 10 schools in the state are of your schools in his district.
That's right. And, I have to name names, Roland. Kevin McCarty, who's a member of the California Legislative Black Caucus, authored a very controversial bill to cap the growth of charter schools in California, such that a new school would not be allowed to open unless an existing school would close. A very tight cap that almost amounted to a moratorium on charter schools. And this is despite the fact that black students are severely underserved by district-run schools. In fact, they're the lowest performing subgroup other than students with special needs. And despite the fact that many of the highest performing charter schools serving a majority black student population are in his district.
So he put this forward. Obviously, the teachers union, they've been pushing this in the state. You had the strike in Los Angeles that was really around charter schools as well. And what still baffles me, and give our audience an understanding, how many kids are in public schools in California, and how many of those kids are in charter schools?
We have about 6.6 million kids in public schools in California, and about 660,000 are in charter schools. Looked at it in a different way, 90% of public school kids in California are in traditional district-run schools. So this whole debate happening in such a heated way in California is about what's happening in 10% of the system. And in the California context, all charter schools are nonprofit. Our state outlawed, for example, for-profit charter schools, which you'll hear Bernie Sanders talking about. And also, you see concentrations of charter schools in largely urban areas where families, particularly African-American families, are concerned about the quality of education. Some of these statistics are just astounding, Roland. When you look at the performance of African-American students in mathematics, for example, 80% of black kids in California cannot do mathematics at grade level. 80%. If you look at English language arts, 68% of black kids can't read or write at grade level. So quite understandably, black parents, low-income parents, Latino parents are looking for free options within the public school system. And what you had in this blue wave over California is the teachers union led by the California Teachers Association that represents, about 300,000 members and is the wealthiest lobby in California, try to take advantage of the positioning of California as the head of the resistance, to use it as an opportunity to say that they needed to beat back charter schools. And you mentioned the LA teacher strike. LA had a recent teacher strike, so did Oakland. And a political tactic in those strikes were for those school district boards, as a part of their collective bargaining agreement with their teachers' unions, to adopt resolutions that pointed to charter schools as the reason why they couldn't balance their budgets, and therefore called for a halt to all new charter schools. The reality of the situation, Roland, is that school districts have skyrocketing pension costs, skyrocketing health care costs. They're making agreements in many of these cities brokered by the mayors that are multi-year compensation agreements that they can't afford. And therefore, they're setting themselves up for fiscal insolvency and bankruptcy and state takeover. And rather than deal with the very difficult reality of that, they've scapegoated charter schools. And in the past week, that has been a massive fail as it relates to the concept of a charter cap, which Kevin McCarty, this gentleman I was talking about, authored legislation to do, but also a charter moratorium that we saw co-sponsored by the California Teachers Association and also the NAACP.
The state NAACP. But there were breakaway chapters. There were different chapters who disagreed with the state branch of the NAACP and stood with you.
That's why this debate has just been fascinating. So recently, in 2016, the state NAACP and the national NAACP approved a resolution that there should be a moratorium on charter schools across America. And the origin of that resolution was in California. That's where it came from.
Alice Huffman, who's on the national board, who was over the California state NAACP.
And she championed this along with a fellow named Julian Vasquez-Hillig, who is a union-affiliated faculty member from Sacramento State University, the university that's in my backyard. And they ran it all the way to the national level. And then Alice Huffman had town hall meetings all across America, which were basically food fights between charter school leaders and local teachers unions. Not a productive conversation at all. But fast forward from 2016 to 2019, where we are today, and they're actually sponsoring legislation in the California Senate to have a charter school moratorium. Well, this week, that moratorium bill went down in flames. It wasn't able to get out of the House of Origin, and was an important evolution in this story is that there were three breakaway chapters or branches of the NAACP: San Diego, San Bernardino, and South Riverside, all in the southern part of the state, who adopted resolutions with extensive data about the underperformance of black kids in California public schools and said, enough is enough. We don't need to have a charter school moratorium. We need to be supportive of all public school options available to our families, and we should be holding all schools accountable, charter schools and traditional government-run schools alike. The other thing that's interesting in this conversation is that then there was a pile-on of civil rights groups that opposed this anti-charter legislation that was being advanced by the CTA, the California Teachers Association, all of the urban leagues in the state of California, all of Al Sharpton's National Action Network chapters in the state of California, all weighed in on the side of charter schools, saying, in light of the data, our families need choices in the public school system. And as black people, we ought not be trying to shutter schools that are doing right by black kids. And as a matter of fact, we should be encouraging them.
I want you just one more time. You said 80% of black kids are not on grade level in which category?
In mathematics.
And 68%.
80%.
The 68%
in reading and writing.
Gotcha. All right then. So Margaret, last question. What's next? Because Kevin McCarthy has said he said the fight is not over.
The fight is not over, and it's not over because there's a really detrimental bill that did make it through the process. It's actually by a guy named Patrick O'Donnell, a legislator out of Long Beach, California, who is the chair of the Assembly Education Committee. And this bill that made it out of the Assembly and is now primed to go to Senate Education, probably in a July timeframe, would take away all of the appeal rights of charter schools. So no due process for charter school petitioners who are seeking to open a new school. And it would say that if a school district thinks that the charter school will cost them money by taking away enrollment, that would be a reason to deny the school. So, and always the charter schools are going to cost the district school enrollment because the money follows the child. It's not the district that has an entitlement to those taxpayer dollars. It's the child. And the money follows the child to the public school that educates them, and that includes charter schools because charter schools are public schools. So that's the next fight.
Yep.
I'm serving on a task force that the governor, Gavin Newsom, appointed to look at these issues and make a recommendation. So reasonable legislators like our chair of the California Legislative Black Caucus, Shirley Weber out of San Diego, who has been quite the champion, reasonable legislators are waiting for the governor's task force to issue their report.
Gotcha. All right, Margaret Fortune, President and CEO of the Fortune Schools. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much, Roland.
All right, again, folks, the video you were seeing there, that was from the town hall that I moderated in Sacramento there with Margaret Fortune and the Fortune Schools just a few weeks ago in Sacramento. Joining us right now, Dr. Julianne Malveaux, economist, president emerita, Bennett College, Dr. Cleo Monago, social political analyst, and activist, Lauren Victoria Burke, writer in NNPA. Cleo, I saw your response when you heard 80% failure and then 68% failure.
80% failure in mathematics, 68% failure in reading. I was wondering if that was statewide.
That was statewide. Now, here's the crazy thing. And again, when I was there, it was crazy. Of the top 10 schools in the entire state where African Americans are performing at high levels, 3 of them, 3 out of the 10, she runs. 3 out of those 3 are in the district of the state rep who wants to cap charter schools. But here's what's the craziest part. He also had in the bill that if Julianne had a charter school and Lauren, who ain't never had a school, wanted to replace a new charter school, you, who's already successful, can't apply to replace the one that failed.
But what's the excuse? What is the explanation to justify what appears to be a irrational decision?
In the state of California, the biggest critics of charter schools are the teachers union, because they are advancing this idea that school districts, as she said, can't balance their budgets because of charter schools, which is illogical if 90% of all kids in the state go to traditional schools. How is it you can't balance a budget because 10% go to charters?
Because it's not privately funded,
you know,
it's
Roland,
publicly funded.
Sister Fortune's
and when it's
work
publicly
is well
funded,
known.
obviously they won't have the money.
Oh, finish. I'm going to
Yeah, so obviously charter schools take part of public money. So wouldn't the answer to this be to improve the public school system rather than to create a new thing?
But here's the deal. Are they improving?
Well,
80,
no,
68.
But we're not trying to fix them. We're trying to create a new thing.
No, actually, no, supposedly they are trying to fix them.
And my thing is charter schools are fine, but privately fund them.
No, but here's the deal, though.
Privately fund them.
But the charters are public. They're actually public schools.
Then why don't we approve the public?
They're using public money, and that becomes a challenge. Sister Fortune's work is well known, well documented. She's doing good work. At the same time, Roland, I have some pushback around the charter school movement from any number of reasons. Her schools are good. All of them are not. You quoted the statistics. You said 86% can't do
No,
mathematics.
80% are not on level with mathematics.
And 68% not
in language and arts.
How does that compare to public schools?
Right.
I mean, because that's the question.
No,
that's the question. Do charter schools do better?
That
Roland,
is, one second.
No.
Now, you asked the question. That's the state. Those are public schools. That's the state's numbers.
How are her schools different? What she did not do in this conversation is say, my schools do this, which is different from those schools. So here's what I know.
Right?
Here's what I know.
Hold on. When you say do different, what do you mean?
What are her
Better
statistics?
results.
What are her results? Yeah. What are her statistics? Because here's what I know for sure, is that 90% of most kids are going to public schools.
Right.
My effort as an activist, as an educator, is going to be to improve the quality of public schools. I don't have a problem with charter schools. Alice Huffman is a friend and a colleague. I think she's come a little hard and she hasn't really quite expressed herself appropriately.
No, she's expressed herself. She's just wrong.
No.
Because black parents ain't buying it.
Well, black parents are not buying it.
And when I say black parents are not buying it, we literally commissioned Cornell Belcher to do a poll specifically on black parents and their thoughts on charter schools and vouchers. More than 70% of black parents who were polled, when you talk about a Republican pollster, said, I'll put my kid in a charter or a voucher. And here's why. Because this is the problem. This is the conundrum that we are in. Black parents ain't got time to talk about contracts, civil rights groups, unions. They're saying, my kid not learning.
You're right.
That's what they're saying.
Here's what you're right about. Black parents want the best thing for their kids.
Of course.
Whatever it is. But we had a education summit at Push Excel on March 17th, which was the anniversary of Brown versus Board. Nicole Hannah-Jones, who's a writer for the New York Times, came and she talked about her work and the ways that we, all of us, middle-class people, can support public schools. And that's, at the end of the day, you can cream a few off, you could take 10%, but what happens to everybody else?
Hold on.
And the majority is in public school system.
But this is
improve the public school system. And you're right to say that black parents don't have time for that talk. That's true. Let's improve where most of the black kids are.
But wait a minute.
That's the public school system.
But here's what's interesting to me. When we say, first of all, I agree, let's improve the public school system.
Absolutely.
But we're still waiting. They're literally.
Why are we waiting?
We're waiting. No,
because
we're waiting.
siphoning off the money.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not. No. First of all, no, you're not siphoning the money off. Because how can you be
siphoning the money off?
No, you're not.
If the money follows the child,
right?
The money follows the child.
That's public
money.
Let's
say that every child has $5,000.
I need y'all to explain to me, how is 10%?
Some of it's public money, Roland. Some of it's public money.
You're not private.
It's all public money, Laura. It's all public money.
But Roland, there's another issue here. The other issue here that maybe was discussed in some other program is that these schools don't know how to educate black children. And
Dr. Fortune.
And I want to mention.
Now, hold right there. So Dr. Fortune's schools know how to educate black kids.
I have no issue.
Well, guess what? Well, hell, I'd rather have Dr. Fortune educate more black kids.
She's the exception
I have
and
no
not the
issue
rule.
with her work. I have no issue with her work.
Right.
I have an issue with the erosion of public education and everything that it stands for.
No, but we're
That's
still.
what I have
Hold on. But Cleo just saying, wait a minute. If they're doing it because they know how to educate black kids, I was just at Jesu School yesterday in Philadelphia. We had a town hall 2 nights ago. I'm in Philadelphia. This is a Jesuit school, independent school, not tied to the archdiocese there. 450 students. 90% of the students there on free and reduced lunch. So I can't hear Diane Ravitch yell, oh my God, are they poor? Oh, they real poor. 450 kids. 90% of their kids graduate, 85% go to college. Oh, and it's open enrollment. Nobody can say, well, they pick and choose. Here's what I'm
but that's unusual.
That's
unusual.
Wait a minute. So here's what I need to understand. If you in Philadelphia, go to their school and say, to your point, Cleo, what are they doing to get those results? And we might want to replicate it. That's my problem when we talk about this deal here, because parents are not trying to wait for that mystical, magical day when the grand plan is unveiled, because you know what? They've been waiting for decades. Cleo, go ahead.
But one of the things I think needs to be said to the audience and to black children probably watching this so they won't be demoralized is the inability to properly educate you has nothing to do with your intelligence level. Has nothing to do with you being deficient. It has to do
Absolutely.
with these systems being culturally out to lunch and unable to understand your path in this society in ways that get you focused enough to learn and take advantage of your genius and your intelligence. This has nothing to do with you being deficient. I want to make that clear.
Absolutely.
Because we keep on putting out these 60, 80% and 68%. That's why I almost fell to cheers like, that's crazy. And I'm from California, and I met all kinds of brilliant black children, because I was among them, that knew how to get through these systems, but it was difficult because the systems were not affirming of black children. And I think, I'll close with this,
Well,
that
no
there is...
system
And
has
I'm
ever
going to laugh
been
because I was a black child who got put out of so many high schools and wasn't even...
Cleo, go ahead.
I think
finish.
the inability to work well and succeed with black children is connected to some kind of systemic level of resistance to affirming black children.
Here's what I'm still trying to understand. This is real basic for me. If there are traditional schools that work, and there are charters that work, and the numbers are there, why can't they coexist?
There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that
But that's not what they want.
You're focusing. What I don't understand about this is that why can't the focus be on fixing what's broken in the public school system?
Because that is
resistance.
Where most
because
of the
that
schools
is
are.
because that is
There's always resistance.
we have been
There's
waiting
always
for that
resistance.
since
There's
the
always
creation of
resistance.
public schools.
No kidding.
And
There's
it ain't
always
happened.
resistance. It's always resistance. I mean,
But the basis of public education has always been tracking. And what we've had in the last 40 years as a resistance to that. We've had black folks being elected to school boards. We've had people make differences. But the fact is that, no, anything that's public is not going to help black people. And most things that are private are not going to help black people. I mean, I just think, you know...
So, hold up. So if anything that's public ain't going to help black people, what the hell are we talking about?
Well, what are the stats?
Well,
across
Roland,
the board
we talk about...
Well, what's
What are the
missing...
stats across the board for charter schools?
No, see, that's what I'm saying right here.
And
This
Laura,
is, no.
what are the stats-
Hold
what
on.
are the stats across the board?
I'm talking about-
and if you look
different?
across
Are
the
they
board,
better?
Here's
they're
the
not
deal.
better.
Here's
They're
the
not
deal.
better.
If you lay out
They're
across,
not better.
first of all, you
I
lay
know.
out across the board, which I've said consistently, across the board,
Right.
you've got good, medium, bad.
Right, absolutely.
And what,
They're no better.
hold up.
Right,
And so
right.
what I'm saying,
They're no better than
no,
those schools.
no, wait a minute. So what I'm saying is, why is it?
I mean, we can cherry
Hold up.
pick schools.
I'm trying to
Just
answer.
like
No,
we can
answer this. Why is it we can't go, if these work traditional,
Yeah.
and these work charter, and these don't work traditional, and these don't work charter, how about we get rid of what don't work?
Absolutely.
And not go, well, I know that charter works, but we need to go ahead and get rid of it.
Roland.
Because
But that's not
There's
what
no-
anybody's saying.
there's
no,
That's not what
Julian,
anybody's
you're
saying.
wrong.
There's no
That's what they're
evidence
saying
that
in
charters are
California.
better.
Well,
Julian, hold on.
That's a mistake.
No,
See,
hold on. Let me
that
help you
school
out
is
with the
better.
bill.
That
Let me
school
with the
is
bill.
better.
They literally,
That school is better.
This is how illogical the bill is. If you're Margaret Fortune.
We're not arguing how logical.
No, well,
it is.
no,
We're not.
we
No,
are.
I agree.
Because I'm trying
We
to tell
agree.
you.
We agree.
No,
Across
but I'm trying to
the board.
explain to you
Margaret Fortune
why
does
they
good work.
created what they did.
There's no argument, Roland.
Wait, no, wait a minute.
We agree with
Because
you.
in California, literally, Margaret Fortune, if the bill had passed, the bill would have said, if a charter school failed, that was not, and Margaret Fortune says, I want to take that over with my results. The law says you can't.
Right.
You can't. We'll go ahead and let somebody who's unproven
Right.
take it over, but a proven leader can't. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life.
No one's disagreeing.
And it's pretty normal.
No one's
It's pretty
disagreeing.
normal. And
But there are three lines to this conversation.
You still have Margaret there?
We have one
That's
line.
about to say it. Okay, I'm going to pull Margaret up because she's still there. I realized she was still there. Go ahead.
Okay, there's one line that talks about what Dr. Fortune is doing
Right.
good work.
Right.
There's one line that talks about what public schools should do, can do.
No. I ain't telling what they should
listen
do.
to me.
What they are doing.
Well, no.
Not should.
Let's talk about
Should
the public
is
school
hypothetical.
System. What the public school system, Roland Martin, does is educates 90% of our kids.
Wow,
So
really?
while-
You're
while-
talking to somebody who went to public schools
Right.
K through 12 and
Right.
4 years, who didn't even go to a private HBCU. I went to all public schools. I ain't never went to a private school. I drove by private schools. I went to a magnet school. But the problem I have with this is that you have black people who have allegiances to one system, and guess what?
I don't agree
They
with
don't
you.
send their
I
kids to
disagree with
public
you.
schools.
I disagree with
The
you,
very
Roland.
people,
I disagree
the
with
very
you.
people who fight Margaret Fortune, state legislators, civil rights leaders, and others who are black, guess where they send their kids? not to public school.
No kidding.
So it amazes me
Everyone
when
in
I hear.
public life can
Well,
say
they
that.
can't put me
Everybody
out of
in
public schools.
life
I
can say
tried
that.
to
No, 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 no.
Members
Not
of
everybody.
Congress and senators or
And that's my
senators
point.
to private
And that's
school.
my point. Margaret, go
Everybody
ahead.
knows that.
Margaret, go ahead. Margaret, go
Dr.
ahead.
Fortune, I'd like to pipe in and say that I've been an education advisor to 2 California governors, and it is always the practice in California public policy that if schools fail, that we pour more money into them. Very rarely do you ever see consequences actually, even if they're on the books in law, implemented beyond technical assistance. So California is a state that very much invests in more money for schools that are struggling, more technical assistance, more professional development. It has not yielded the kinds of results that we would want to see for black students.
Over how many
And
years?
so
Dr. Fortune,
Hold on. Now, Cleo asked the question. Go ahead, Doc. Answer.
since the creation of Title I. But when I was in the Davis administration, and right now we're in Newsom, and before that it was Brown, and before that it was Schwarzenegger. So I'm talking about Davis, right? And all these people, except for Davis, served 2 terms.
Are there any white parallels to this? Any white community parallels to this? And I mean very specifically, constantly funding or reaffirming dysfunctional systems that are not effective and keep on going back to the drawing board of ineffectiveness to being effective again for a decade and then being effective again to put some more money in effectiveness. Is there a white equivalent to this of apparently not valuing these children's education?
There's not, because basically the achievement it tracks to wealth. So you've got wealthy suburban districts that do well, right, and you have inner city urban districts that don't do as well. Now, I will tell you, under Governor Jerry Brown, he significantly increased the funding and tipped the scale towards school districts that were urban. And so, for example, when I first started opening schools, the state allocation back in 2010 per child was $6,000. It has increased to $12,000, but that's compared to $22,000 in New York. So I would make the argument that we all need to be.
So
hold on.
I would make the argument. Go ahead.
Doctor, somebody asked the question earlier. You were on the phone. The question was, if 80% are failing across California and 80% in one category, 68% in the other, what are your numbers? How are they performing at your schools?
So 58% are meeting standards in reading and writing, and 54% are meeting standards in math.
So, hold on. So just so we compare this. So 20% across the state are meeting standards in math. At your school is 54%.
That is correct.
32% are meeting the state on reading and writing. And what's the percentage for your schools?
58%.
So in both of those categories, you're 30 points higher than the traditional schools.
No one's arguing that this
No, wait.
Well, you did ask about my results. You did ask about my results. So it would seem to me, if educators have results, then we should be unpacking how they got them.
Margaret, go ahead.
No. I said you did ask about my results. I was listening, and it would seem to. And you asked about my results.
1 second, Margaret, go ahead.
It clearly is. You asked about my results. Are they better? They clearly are. So the question becomes to me, why not ask these public school educators, because charter schools are public schools, how they're getting the results? Why not have some curiosity?
Which is what Cleo asked.
What I want to ask her, what would you, Dr. Fortune, do to make the public schools better? Because no matter...
Come sit in her damn schools and take some notes.
Why don't she ask...
But I'm saying... No. Here's the point.
No. You asked her, what would she do?
I'd be happy to answer the question.
Margaret, go
And the
ahead.
answer is I would hold them to the same level of accountability as public charter schools. I am up for a review, a public review every single year, a public review against every promise that I've made about what my academic goals are and my fiscal accountability and my social emotional wellness of the children. Every goal I've made goes through public examination every year. And every 5 years I go through a review, and if I haven't met my targets, my school's closed. My father is a retired school superintendent. Even if a school is severely under-enrolled, in the traditional public school system, nobody wants to close it, even if it makes no sense for it to be open. But in a charter school context, what we know is that if we don't perform, then we're not going to be doing this work. And so there's a tremendous amount of focus on getting results for students. I think the other thing is that I get to select a staff that is very mission-driven. Very, very low percentages of teachers in California public schools are black.
Yeah.
44% of mine are black. And it's because I'm explicitly talking about black students and closing the app. We're not exclusive. We're a public school. We accept everybody. But we do not change the subject about going for college preparation for black students starting in kindergarten. And it's the narrative and the mission focus which helps us. And I'll tell you, I have been the CEO of this system of schools that I've created for 11 years. In that time, there have been at least 3 superintendents of the Sacramento City Unified School District. And now, because they have a $35 million budget gap, they are anticipated to run out of money by November and be taken over by the state. So there's tremendous volatility and instability in the leadership of many of these urban school districts that our families are counting on to work. In my context, leadership matters, principal leadership matters, and stability matters.
All right, final comment on this topic before I go to the Chicago story. Julianne.
Again, Dr. Fortune, kudos to you, but I want to know what you could do to make sure that public schools are more effective. I know that's not your mission, but that's many of our missions.
She just said
what
it.
can you do? No, not sit in your classroom.
No, not that. She just said that.
Actually,
first of all.
I run a graduate school of education, and I credential teachers for about 60 to 7 traditional public schools. And I license them. And we also license principals. And we teach them how to create the setting that we've created in our schools at a classroom level. Even if their whole school is on board, they can implement it in our classroom. And we also have licensing programs for principals where they can learn to implement this model on a school-wide level. So that's our contribution, which is huge, to disseminating our best practices, because I think it's important. And remember, I'm a public school superintendent's kid. I think it's important that all of our schools succeed, but I also have a sense of urgency that we're not going to wait anymore. Time's up on that.
Dr. Fortune, what you're doing is obviously brilliant. The work you've done is brilliant. But there's no evidence across the board in this country that charters are any better than public schools. Obviously, everybody would want to replicate your work everywhere. I mean, that's clear. But there are great public schools, just like there are great charter schools.
Yes,
there are bad charter schools, like there's bad public
and
schools.
And both can coexist.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So why can't? So
And we should elevate all of
No
those
one's saying
great
nothing about
models into
coexistence.
the
I'm talking about the
context
money.
of research
I'm talking about the
Stanford
Y'all keep
that says
hold on,
in urban settings,
Doc, hold on 1 second. That what y'all both are saying is not true. Well, y'all say no one is saying that.
Where's the money going?
No, that is a fundamental lie.
Is this a private?
No, wait a minute.
What's the
One
funding on
second.
her
No.
school? What's the funding
Let
on
me
her
answer
school?
you. There are individuals in this country who absolutely say no charter school.
We are not those individuals.
No. When y'all say no
He's
one is
talking about the larger context.
No, when y'all say no
We are
one
not
is
those
saying,
individuals.
you should say I'm not saying.
All right,
But
we're
it's
not
not
saying-
true
we're
that
not
no
saying
one
it.
is saying
We're not
that.
saying it.
That's
all
first.
I want, Roland, every parent has
But hold on,
the right
wait.
to find
No,
a school
you question
their child
her
thrives.
funding?
I said across
Every
the
parent.
board. I said across the board. There's no statistical evidence
That's
that
correct.
charters and
Yes,
that
and what I'm trying to say
That's
to you.
not true.
correct.
That's not
Hello,
true.
I don't
Look at the
Doc, go
Credo
ahead.
report.
Doc,
Credo
go ahead.
Institute report out of Stanford. That's not true. Stanford
so
did
there's one
research
report.
that shows
There's
an
no
urban
evidence that
area.
charters evidence
better.
that charters
There's
are better.
no
But there is
Charters do
evidence.
better.
No evidence that
We
charters
just got
are
some
better.
statistics
Now,
that were.
obviously, there's evidence that her school is better, and she should be
Her school is
congratulated.
better,
We-
but charters by and large, you have
So
horrible
here's
charters, you got great
Cleo,
charters.
go ahead.
We just heard some statistics, if I'm not if I'm not, hearing
You heard
things,
one-third.
that we heard 80% of mathematics
Right.
failure.
Hold on 1 second. In the state of California,
Right, you're right.
80% of black kids
Absolutely.
in traditional public schools across the state of California, are failing when it comes to the issue of math. Not
68
reading at
when
level.
it comes to
reading
but
is 68.
But she has better statistics in terms
Yes.
of.
But she has better statistics.
There are existing statistics, though, because this whole conversation is happening in the context of California.
Right.
And that there's resistance to replicating what she's doing, use their best practices on a systemic level.
There's no resistance. I'm just making
Wait a
a
minute.
point.
If there's no
point.
resistance,
There
oh
are.
my
That's
God,
why
you can't say there's no
going to the
resistance.
legislature.
You can yell over me on
They
the
want to
okay,
cut off
point.
the
No,
growth.
no,
There
They
is
don't want charter
legislative
schools to grow.
resistance. There's legislative resistance to charters.
There's no resistance
Because,
to saying she's
there's
better, Roland.
legislative
Relax.
resistance.
No.
Relax.
Lauren,
Yeah.
you're
Relax.
Lauren.
Relax.
Lauren, here's the deal.
There's
You-
no proof that charters are better than public schools across the board.
Lauren,
across
this
the
is-
board.
this
I
is-
want you to look at
Across
the
This is
Credo
the
report for
mistake.
Not just
Stanford.
See, this is the
California.
mistake that you
Okay.
keep making. This is the mistake that you
All
keep
y'all.
making on this one. And that is very simple. I can show you great charters, good charters,
Right.
bad charters. I can show you great traditional schools,
Right. Agree.
good, bad.
Agree.
What I am saying, which somehow you're not hearing, is there are individuals who don't want the great charters.
We knew
who don't
that
want
an
the
hour
good
ago.
charters.
We knew that an hour
That's just
ago.
not the case. The case
It's
is
not the case.
In California?
Hold up, Dr. Fortune. Are you not dealing with
Yes, sir.
people? Are you not dealing with people who do not want you in business? Yes or no?
Who was arguing that?
Yes.
Are you dealing with the largest funder of Democrats in the state of California who do not want you in business?
Who would that be?
Yes. That's the California Teachers Association.
Right.
I'm at
Are
the
you-
California Democratic
Who was arguing
Convention
that?
right now.
Are you
and they only
dealing?
joined.
Are you dealing with state legislators, including one in your home district, who do not want to see you in business?
Yes.
There's your proof.
That sounds like
That ain't
resistance.
proof.
I'm trying to understand what more you need.
What? That is a
That is proof.
That is a case.
That is
a case and
What?
not proof. Again, I'm
That's
gonna
a
give the
case
sister
and not
all
proof.
the kudos
Oh, my Lord.
that
That's
she
a
deserves.
stretch.
I'm right.
take-
That ain't even a stretch. I'm like, I don't know what we were drinking before the show, but to somehow, to somehow not believe that there are people who do not want to see the Margaret Fortunes and the Steve Perrys and the Tim Kings and the Gestalts and the others. And what I'm saying is this here. I went to traditional schools. All I'm saying is this here. If I believe in good, great, what works for our kids.
Sure.
And what
I
I
don't
will
disagree with
do,
you.
I'm
I
going
do
to
not
fight
disagree
black
with you.
people who will say, no, we don't want any more of that
Roland,
because
Roland,
why
roll
can't
it
we
back.
just fix this? Well, hell, we've
Okay, I
been
know-
waiting on
wait a
this,
minute.
and
I
that
know this
car's
is your
still
show.
broke,
I
and
know
they
this-
driving us nowhere.
Roland,
90%
I know
of the
this is your
kids
show,
are
but
there.
let's just roll it back for a minute, if you don't mind. So, I think we all agree that our kids are entitled to the best opportunity to learn,
Absolutely.
whether it's charter, public, whatever.
Magnet, homeschool, online
whatever.
school,
I think
technical
we all
schools,
agree with
private,
that.
parochial, you name it.
But I also believe that there's been an attack on public education that we need to repel. I feel very strongly about that. Dr. Fortune has
What's
my
the-
kudos. Tim and Steve Perry, they all have my kudos. But let's look at the public education system that's educating most of our kids.
Do you know what I'm
must we
attacking?
stay?
90% of the kids
80%
are.
not passing math.
We're 90%
I'm attacking
of the kids.
I agree with
60% not
that.
passing
Where
reading.
90% of the
with that.
kids
Well, we
are.
can
Dr.
fix
Fortune,
that.
Dr.
Well,
Fortune,
we
I
can
gotta
fix
go.
that.
But
We
apparently
can
we
fix
can't-
that.
we
Let me
haven't-
know when it happens.
We
Dr.
haven't-
Fortune,
90% of the
make your
kids.
final
For
comment,
40
please.
years?
Dr. Fortune, go ahead.
So here's the thing. We should all be, and I consider myself, advocates of public education. There's no reason why 90% of the system needs to turn on 10% and point to them and say, you ought not exist. The thing is, education is competing for resources with health care, with health and welfare programs. We should be united in marching for more support and funding for all of public education. But this constant war that's being launched quite clearly by the California Teachers Association, because they never wanted us to exist in the first place, is a distraction for the black community on the real issues that are afflicting our kids. And if we could somehow coexist and maybe even develop a sense of trust then we can unpack some of these practices from high-performing environments, whether they be public charter schools or traditional schools that are serving Black students well, so that more can have that experience. But as a Black community, we need to be holding everybody accountable and not fall into this bickering about what delivery system it is. From my perspective, if you are effective in educating Black kids, I'm going to support you regardless of what your delivery system is.
Well, Dr. Fortune, you said something that was critical. You said that the state of California could very well take over the Sacramento school system. This is how I look at it in terms of what works and what doesn't. If you're killing it and you're outperforming somebody else, I'd rather you run 10 more schools. And you know what? If you're killing it with 10 schools and they still failing, I say give you 10 more. Why? Because it's our children. But what happens is we keep having folks tell us to accept mediocrity and waiting on that promised land for that ship to come in. And we have another generation of Black kids who are going through these systems. In fact, when I did your town hall there, I cannot remember the woman. She was a longtime educator. There's an initiative for kids to qualify for the California state schools. Didn't she say only 7 Black children in Sacramento qualified on all levels for California state universities? What is something like that?
It was alarmingly low, and that was a retired school superintendent of one of the area districts in Sacramento who's serving on an advisory committee for the Sacramento Unified School District.
Yeah,
a very credible source.
Yeah, she said
full career in traditional public schools.
Yeah, she said that what they do is, she said, in terms of in the Sacramento school district, in terms of students who qualified on all levels to enroll in California state universities, 7 Black kids in the whole district.
And
that to me is an abomination.
And our tax dollars pay for that.
Dr. Fortune, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, our tax dollars paid for it.
Right.
Our tax dollars paid for it.
Roland, the Teachers Association is valuing control and tradition, including dysfunctional tradition, over being effective and over being able to replicate systems that have worked to educate Black children. They're valuing control, and they're valuing their presence and them being relevant as opposed to being effective.
Right.
And that kind of thinking has messed up a lot of Black opportunity.
At the same time, Cleo, I mean, I agree with you like 90%. But I also think that the CTA and the teachers' unions have been very effective in
keeping their job?
No, protecting Black teachers. There is a racism in the educational system that Black teachers have been subject to.
Let me tell you
and
something.
we have to deal with that.
I have spoken to the AFT, the NEA. I've spoken to numerous education groups. And you know what happens? When I stand in front of those groups, Black teachers, and I say, how many of y'all know teachers, principals, and administrators ain't got no business involved in education? Hands fly up.
No doubt.
Well,
Hands fly up. And so here's the deal. I'm tired of us putting a cover and a new coat of paint on sorry. My deal, I'm telling you, I don't care if the problem that we have is we think that the current school system is a delivery system. It's not the delivery system. If you have 100,000 kids and X number goes to traditional public charter, magnet, homeschool, online school, parochial, vouchers, or whatever, and it works, I got no complaints. But what I'm not going to do is say no to this, because it should be here, no to vouchers, no, even though we support our kids going to private HBCUs, which is government taxpayer dollars in the form of a voucher. It's called a Pell Grant. Same thing. We ain't got no problem with our kids going to private HBCU.
You ain't got me on that. You ain't got me on that.
No, but we don't. I've been saying
because the same Pell
we ain't got no problem.
Public education.
No, but that's my point.
Right.
My point is, though, we got no problem when we say who goes to Morehouse or Spelman or Houston Tillerson or private HBCUs with taxpayer dollars, but then we say, oh, no, I don't like a voucher. It's the same thing. Literally the same thing. What I'm tired of are seeing black people having to bear the brunt of failure. And if we got black educators who can take a charter school and teach our kids better than them, I'm saying I'm down with it, 100%.
I don't mind. I think that anything that a parent does to make sure that their child has maximum efficiency in education, I'm with that.
And that's why they don't care about the NAACP moratorium, which I said when they did it, ain't gonna do squat for black people.
You can make the same speech about good
what,
public schools, though.
What?
The speech you just made, you can make about good public schools.
And I have. And I'm saying coexist. But there are forces who do not want them to coexist. They want to see Tim King shut down. I was yesterday 2 days in Philadelphia. Black woman who was the principal of the year in the Philadelphia school system, who created her own 2 charter schools, who's doing better than traditional schools there. She applied for additional 132 seats over the next 4 years and was denied. Because they said, we don't want to lose the money. Now, damn the kids, we don't want to lose the money.
I know. I got you on that. I'm on a board of a charter school in someplace upstate New York. And
you don't know where it is?
Yeah, I know where it is, but I ain't going to say.
Why? You on the...
Well, anyway, whatever.
I'm on the board somewhere up there. Okay, all right.
No, it's Buffalo. But anyway. I mean, I won't call them out. But we have had challenges just getting the school approved because people don't want the school there. I got
Who are the people? No, don't say people. Who are the people?
The state.
And who the state?
And who in the state?
Legislators.
And
who funds them?
The government.
Who funds
And who funds them?
And who the
Who
government?
funds the school?
No, who funds them?
Who funds the school?
Who funds the school?
And do they look like this?
Who funds
They
the
look
school?
they look just like that.
And who funds them?
Why don't we just say that?
And who funds them? No.
Who funds the school?
Who funds the legislators who don't want your charter school to do better?
It's boards of education, state boards of education who don't want this young sister who's trying to build this thing to have the opportunity to do.
No. That ain't why. No. Hold on. No, Julia. No.
That's why
they're... Roll that back and say it again. State boards and local boards don't want a sister to do what?
To provide educational opportunities for young black children. No, so, we're on the same page up to a point. But I also think that we can't throw public schools
Never
out.
said throw them out. But my problem is they are denying that sister the opportunity to educate our kids and saying, y'all got to stay here. And they failing here.
That's right.
And if black people are saying, y'all shouldn't go nowhere, hell no. If that sister can take 400 and educate them and do well, I want her to get 400 more and 400 more.
So you'll speak at our next fundraiser, right?
I ain't got no problem doing it. That's why I'm doing this school choice is the black choice. But what I'm sick and tired of black people making excuses for failed systems and
ain't
then...
nobody making excuses.
No,
Who's
that's
making
not...
excuses? I'm not making excuses. What I'm
people
doing
have made
California,
excuses.
there are people.
I'm not making excuses. I'm
But I've been
looking at
dealing with it.
structure. I'm looking at structure.
Okay.
We do know
Like if you feel
I've been,
that,
hold
because
on.
you're watching
I've been
this
dealing with them. Black people. I've been dealing with them.
These black people.
Black civil rights people. Black state legislators. Black city council members.
We do know what
black
you're dealing with.
commission members. No, I know exactly what I'm doing. I've traveled.
No, I said we know what you're dealing with.
No.
We see it.
I'm dealing with black people who are standing in the way of black success in education and making excuses. That's what they're doing. I'm going to a break.
you need to go to break, bro. Okay.
11 people dead in Virginia.
I'm going to the break. Y'all go ahead.
All
right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. Hey, folks, they're back. MarijuanaStock.org is another great investment opportunity. If you were lucky enough to invest in their last crowdfunding campaign, you know they raised a lot of money in just a few months investing in legal marijuana farms. Those initial investors now own shares of a publicly traded company. They are certainly on fire. The last time, of course, many of you missed it. Y'all been emailing me. Now you have an opportunity this time for this new investment opportunity that is as good, if not even better, than the last time. I'm talking about industrial hemp CBD. For those who don't know, the hemp plant is a cousin to marijuana with a much higher concentration of CBD, which means hemp CBD gives you all of the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the United States and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill recently passed in Congress, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. They need land to grow all of the plants, and this certainly makes for an incredible investment opportunity. And that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in, and their business model is very simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. And you can invest in this crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200 up to $10,000. Like I said, you don't want to miss out. Many of you did the first time. Now you have a second opportunity to invest. Go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Folks, if you want to get in the game, you certainly must do it now. Now back to your Roland Martin Unfiltered video.